Hey everyone, this is KJ. I just wanted to let you know before our episode got started that I made an oopsie and forgot to tell Nathan to record the audio tracks separately out of Zoom. And so our audio is just a little bit different. But, such as making a podcast in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic is sometimes you don't get it perfectly. What am I saying? Anyways, this is already longer than I wanted it to be. I just want to let you know the audio is going to be a little bit different. So sorry about that, and we'll make sure that we get it cleared up as much as we can in later episodes. Okay, on with the show. Sweet.
Metronome,
All right.
metronome,
Zoom.
metronome,
Sync.
metronome. Check, check. Patrick, you want to clap again? Patrick.
Nathan. I'm an oyster.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by three Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 13, the big ol' 1-3 of the Janchi Show. This is your boy at KJ Relke with my two co-hosts, Nathan and Patrick.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are
Very
excited.
Hannibal Lecter.
Hello, Clarice.
Hello. We're excited to be back. This is the second episode during National Adoption Awareness Month, or National Adoption Month, or, whatever version
Adoptee Awareness
of,
Month.
Yeah, however you want to call that. We're choosing to reclaim this month for ourselves as a National Adoptee Month because most of the stories around adoption are from the, how did you put it, Patrick? The baby perspective, the infantile perspective?
Yeah, so actually I really appreciate you kicking that over to me real quick, because I do have one correction to make from the previous episode. I was talking about the author of Adopted Territory, a book I've been reading, and throughout the week, someone had listened to the episode, shout out to Sarah Park Dolan, and had let me know that I had pronounced the author's name incorrectly. Her name is Alina J. Kim, not Elena, Alina. So I do apologize, Mrs. Kim, for saying your name incorrectly. And I hope that
But
if
I
you
bought
hear
the
this,
book, so thank you.
I hope that if you hear this, two of us have the book, and I love it. It is literally changing my life. So the way that she puts it, for a lot of adoptees, like especially the ones that first came over or were first adopted, late 50s, early 60s, those narratives were being written not by the adoptees themselves, but by the adoptive parents, the people that worked at the agencies, the Korean government, just people that were not the adoptees. So what we see a lot in the late 80s and early 90s is a taking back of that by those adoptees who are now adults. And that's what we're seeing now again, what we do with this show and what you see on a lot of other podcasts, and what our guest will talk about and what we'll talk about a little bit later, has done with her Facebook group, but a reclaiming of that narrative and shifting that perspective from a non-adoptive person telling an adoptee story to adoptees telling those stories. That's it.
Sorry, I made the mistake of trying to get onto Instagram while you were talking, and then I was just looking, because so we used the hashtag National Adoption Month on one of our posts recently, and if you just tap on that, then it's a lot of pictures of babies and like young kids, and some of it's transracial, some of it is not, but there's not a lot of people our age or older talking about being adopted. And I think it's interesting too, like that feels like a thing that as you grow older you kind of leave behind until you pick it back up again, like the three of us had. So yeah, I'm excited to hear more people taking back the narrative and adding their own voices, be like, hey, this is what adoption looks like 20 years later or 30 years later or 40 years later.
Yeah, I haven't gone on Facebook and typed in that hashtag just to see how many people are posting about it, because as we know, there's 200,000 Korean adoptees, but then there's over a million of other adoptees from other countries and domestically, and there's a lot of adoption and a lot of foster care and stuff, and so this is their month. So there's probably a lot of people who are hashtagging that and talking about it, but then there's probably a lot that aren't, and a lot of people probably don't even know that some people are adopted, or even things like, I mean, just interfamily adoption and stuff like that. So there's I'd be interested to see what people are talking about right now.
I talked about it today. I actually, well, today when we're recording this, not today when this is coming live to you, but I think that's something, especially that I've been learning a lot on this journey, and especially as this being, National Adoptee Awareness Month, and seeing all of the stories and all of these accounts that I've been following start to share a little bit more personal things and advice and stuff like that. I thought to myself that this is a good point for me to kind of expand my journey a little bit in terms of sharing. So I have, as you guys, I've told you, but I've got my adoption documents and like my baby book and stuff, and I've been looking at that and going over those things. And I've been wanting to post a little bit for a while and share a little bit of that. And today I was like, I woke up this morning and I thought, I think I'm gonna share some of this. So I posted a couple of my baby pictures and just talked about, this is me when I was born. This was taken where I was born at. It had my Korean name, which was given to me by either the wet nurse or the social worker that was there after I'd either been abandoned or left by my parents at this place. And talking about how, yes, I did end up in a really great situation, but that doesn't discount or dismiss any trauma or anything that I went through or had to have dealt with that I am now learning has come from this adoptive situation. And it's not to be like to bring it down or to be talking down about adoption or anything like that. It's more of me understanding that, to dismiss that type of story and to dismiss, that this narrative is not our narrative to tell, is to dismiss our voice in that way. And I think that, especially with this month and the hashtags and everything that people are talking about, I think there are a lot of people talking about it, and both good and bad ways. And again, I think a great thing about our guests is that we talk about the duality on both sides of the adoption spectrum, and what people talk about in regards to that. So,
yeah, maybe not even duality, but plurality.
Oh,
that
plurality,
it's not
yeah.
either or, it's all of it.
Right.
Yeah. And I love that we get into that with our guest, Jinna Lee, who is the creator and admin and moderator of the Facebook group / page, Adoption Love, the very good, the bad, the ugly. And, as we were talking to her, I think she briefly mentions about going back to Korea. And we realized just moments before pressing record on this intro that Patrick had never been back to Korea, which I don't know why that feels like a big revelation to me. Well, actually, the revelation is that he was nervous to go back to Korea, which for me, like, I think just because I love Korea and I've just been infatuated with it for as long as I can think about having emotions, that's just a really foreign concept to me. So, Patrick, I'm curious, why were you scared about going back?
Yeah, I think that the fear or the hesitancy to go back was really due in part to the fact that I really just wanted to fit in with my white town and my white friends, and they're not going back to Korea. They don't want to know about,
well, they would just be going to Korea.
They're not having the conversation about, like, why do I look different or any of that stuff, and then I don't ever feel like there was a moment where I had been thinking about going, but I think that there was a moment where it just passed me by where this was a decision that I was not going to make anytime soon about going. I think my parents, our adoptive parents, or my parents are really good about talking to us about, we want to go with you and we think you should go at some point. And for a long time, I was like, I'm good with who I am. This is who I am, and I don't need to explore that to be myself. And now I'm at a point where I do want to explore that to be part of myself, and now I'm like, and now I want to go. It's like I think about those times, and I think of it as very selfish of me to be afraid, and I know that's not the case, but I do feel like I've had experiences where I come into contact with other Asian people or Koreans or the culture, and I would run away from that, and I do feel very ashamed that I felt that way, and that's the same way I had felt about for a long time going to Korea. we talk about adoptees going over there, sticking out, and then not being readily accepted by the rest of that culture. That scared me, and it is make me a little bit nervous about going now. But I'm a lot more open to the fact of making that journey.
You're probably more, because you're older, you're more comfortable with yourself. You're more comfortable with not really, I think, doing it for anyone else. You're doing
Right.
it for yourself. You're not worried if the other people think, oh, why are you here, or things like that. So, I love to travel. I've traveled since I was, every year pretty much my parents would take us on trips. And so I've traveled internationally since I was, little, and I've always loved to travel. So it's really funny that, even though you're saying you haven't been there lately, my first time was 3 years ago. So
Right.
I was 41. So for the first time of me going to Korea was past where you'll be going probably someday, and far past when KJ went. You were there at 16, so
They're like, I think 13.
13. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
See,
had a lot of trouble trying to figure that out in Brandon's episode.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I still haven't nailed it down. I connected with someone in a Holt adoptee group who was like, "Hey, I think I was on that same trip with you too," and I was like, "When was it? Because neither of us know." So she was like, "I think it was like 2007 or something. I don't know. Whatever."
But I really
Time
am
is weird.
sad I didn't go sooner. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that you guys have been. I wish I had gone earlier, but it's funny because people would ask me, "Hey, why don't you want to go to Korea?" Or it's like, because I want to go to all these other places first. Like I've been to Japan, I've been to Thailand, not Philippines, Europe, many places in Europe, and all these things that I've done have never included Korea, which you'd think that would be one of the first places I would want to go to. And I think that's what other people assume as well. It's like, why didn't you want to go? But yeah, so I'm happy that I went for sure.
Did you have any nerves before you went? I mean, I know that I'm assuming that you went like to go and meet up with your family, right? But like beyond meeting your family, were you nervous about going to Korea at all?
Sure. I mean, the number one thing I think most people will have a hesitation towards is the language barrier. I think that's with any foreign country. Most people are like, "Oh, how am I going to communicate?" Even though there are a portion of people that speak English, and there's signs that are in English and stuff, but it is sometimes difficult.
It can feel like a
depending on
big
where you
wall,
go.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been to Europe, and same thing. I mean, this is Europe, and I'm walking around lost somewhere. So it doesn't have to be in Asia where even the letters don't look the same. It's anywhere. But so that was my main hesitation, was getting around and getting lost. But I knew that for the trip that I went on, I was going to be pretty much chaperoned the entire time by my family, so I wasn't concerned about that portion of it. But I would have if I was in my earlier days. But
Because you knew, like you said, you're gonna have like your family there to show you around and take you to places and translate. I'm assuming for you. What kind of prep? I don't know if we talked about this on your episode. I don't think we did. But what kind of prep did you do prior to going to Korea? Like, did you look up any resources? Like, what should I do?
Yeah, how many
Make a
Wikipedia
list,
articles
or
did you read?
yeah, how many
Almost
Wikipedia
none.
hours did you put in?
It's funny, the communication between my brother and I during that planning portion is I didn't even know if I was staying in a hotel. I didn't know if I was staying in their houses. I didn't know what cities I was going to be staying in. I was a little scared about that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, my friend came with me, and I warned him. I was like, "Hey, I
Oh.
don't have any clue where we're going to be staying. We could be sleeping on the floors," which honestly, actually, we did, but because that's what they do.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I just didn't know, and so I was warning him, "Don't come if you don't want all these surprises," kind of a thing. But it all worked out, and they did have everything planned. There was some confusion. Again, we're translating through a phone, and so I'm like, "Where are we going?" They're like, "We're going to a pension," because the Google Translate kept saying pension.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm like, "Pension?" I'm like, "What am
We're
I
going
putting
to a
money?
retirement
Am I
plan?
putting a retirement plan?" And I didn't know what the word meant, and it's not just in South Korea. It's actually that term is actually used in other countries of the world too, for essentially like a Airbnb type place with a breakfast and stuff.
Weird.
Yeah,
Interesting.
but I didn't know that until that trip, so I was so confused. I kept thinking Google Translate was wrong. So,
This can't be right.
All right. The more you know.
yeah, so now I
well,
learned. Yeah.
It sounds like, Patrick, when you go back to Korea, it'll be the Janchi Boys take Korea, and we'll just go with you, and then go do our own things, and also maybe record an episode. That'd actually be incredible.
That would be
we
great.
Just went and explored around. So, because I want to go back. Like I said, I was so young when I went that I got the highlights of things, but I just would go back in different lenses now, and I have that same trepidation I think that you feel, Patrick, just about like all Korean culture stuff, but specifically like in America with my white friends, and even to some extent with my wife. Like I feel like responsible to be able to explain things,
Right.
about the culture. Like, like on my episode when we were talking about drinking soju, I didn't know any of kind of the greater cultural context about that. So I would feel responsible to do that. And so going to Korea, I think because of this podcast and just the journeys that I've been on, I feel more comfortable sticking out as a adoptee and accepting that as maybe a deeper culture than Korean or American, and I think it was Minju who was like, oh, I felt very Western in the Philippines, but then when I got to America, I realized I was very Eastern. I think I'm more okay with feeling very American in Korea and feeling not quite American in America now because I'm adopted, and that's what being a third culture kid means.
And the other hesitations I did have also was the food. Luckily I'd had some exposure to the food here, but I didn't know what my family was going to feed me while I was there.
And you didn't know how you were going to feel about rice. You're like, I've never had rice before.
What is this strange stuff?
This is sticky white substance.
Yeah, but I went with the pre-notion that I was going to try everything and anything that they gave me. And just to be not only polite, but also to be open-minded. And I did. I tried everything that they gave me. Some I liked and some I definitely didn't like. But the stuff I liked, I wrote down, and, I would love to find things like that here. So
how much shellfish extract did you eat? Did you consume?
Oyster shell.
Or oyster shell.
Yeah.
Lots of oyster shells. I sprinkled it on everything I ate.
Buy little bottles of it. Just
oyster shell is the table salt of Korea.
We're gonna have somebody say oyster shell is not the table salt. It's this.
Exactly.
Well, according to Wikipedia, to the article that I wrote.
Yeah, please don't look at the edits or updates log of this Wikipedia page.
Yeah, but have you any plans, Patrick, that when you would want to go, or if it's on your plate even in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so it's funny. Well, I guess it's not really funny. I don't know why I said that, but we had been talking about. My sister and I had started to formulate a plan.
Sorry, I was just trying to. I was trying to gauge where it got funny, so I just jumped in.
That was it. That was the story.
You formulated
the
a plan.
We had started to potentially plan for both us and then our respective, or her husband and my fiance, and then our parents to go back here within 3 years. And then the pandemic happened, and now I don't know. Those plans have been put on hold. Mm-hmm. She's already been once, which I think we did talk about. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. I was like, I think we talked about that. So
just did an entire episode about it.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. We'll talk about it.
Like a true brother.
Yeah.
That's filial piety.
We have a little bit of a we have some groundwork laid, I guess. So hopefully, we can make that happen soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. I definitely want to go back too. So,
well, you guys can come.
Yeah,
you're invited.
Yeah,
just you guys though, not your wives or your kids. Nathan, sorry,
but it
Nathan's
is
kids.
Adoption.
Actually, just your kids can come with me, Nathan.
Oh, yeah.
I actually care about you.
We'll
just want to hang out with Kelvin
for a couple weeks.
Yeah, you let me know how that plane ride goes.
All right, no problem. All right. Well,
we have a fantastic interview lined up for today, so let's dive in. This is Jinna Lee, like I said, the creator, admin, moderator of the Facebook page and Facebook group Adoption Love: the very good, the bad, the ugly. Here it is.
Oh, wait,
that's not how our music goes. It goes like this.
All right. We are here today with Jinna Lee. Jinna, thank you for joining the Janchi Show today. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
It's really exciting to be here for episode 14. Are we on episode 14 now? I've kind of forgotten. It's almost like they all run
13.
together.
13.
All right, we're on episode 13, the
Lucky
luckiest
number
number
13.
in the world. We're recording this on a very nice and sunny day where I am. I think it's pretty sunny where everyone else is. I think we're getting a little rain in
Raining.
California. Yeah. So, Jinna, thank you again for coming and giving us the opportunity to speak with you today. We start all of our interviews off the same way. We want to know a little bit about your background and your adoption story, and to kind of get a little of that for our audience.
So I was adopted in 1974. I was about 5 years old, and I arrived to Minnesota. And people ask me what I remember of that actual day. And most of it I've just blocked out. And it was a wonderful arrival day, but also just being a little girl, being terrified. And if you see any of the pictures I post, I look extremely sad and confused. So I arrived in Minnesota, and I've been here ever since. And I went to the U of M, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree. And at the U of M, I met my husband, who is a refugee from Vietnam, and he arrived here from Vietnam about the same year. We've been married for over 27 years.
Wow, congrats.
Cool. Great.
Yeah, it goes by fast.
And you have kids?
Yes. I have a son that graduated from college about a year and a half ago in a business finance degree. And then I have a daughter that's got a couple of years left of college.
So, as we've learned from some of our guests, Minnesota is considered the land of 10,000 adoptees. Because that's a very big center point for a lot of Korean adoptees specifically. Growing up there, what was, after being adopted, and like you said, felt a little bit sad, even at that young age, you could feel a little bit of that. What was it like growing up in that community, and how did you first start to connect with the adoptee community or with other people of color just in that area?
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up. I actually am kind of new to the Korean community, the Korean adoption community. Within the last couple of years, I got involved with it. But before that, I was on a Facebook group that actually catered to more of Korean adoptee and parents. And my husband had encouraged me to start my own group. And so with 34 members, I started the Adoption Love, the very good, bad, and ugly of adoption, because as we all know, adoption isn't just all rainbows and unicorns.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted a group that helped everyone be in their journey and have a space for them.
When did you start it?
I started that group about a little over 10 months ago.
Oh, okay.
So approaching that first year.
Yeah. And like you guys, you felt a call to action. And that's what I really like about your podcast, because you're giving a place for everyone to share their stories and to share that adoption isn't just all happy endings.
Right. And that's something, I think that we're all learning a little bit, especially like you said, some of our guests are speaking about how the uglier sides of adoption and things like that, where us three specifically have came to very, positive situations. And we had a lot of positive reinforcement growing up, and coming to terms with that on our end of just the other sides or the other things that happen in the adoptee community, that a lot of people go unawares of as they go through life. So you said you started Adoption Life with 34 members. Was that a group that you had kind of built together on the other groups, or who were those first founding members of that group with you?
Well, they were my friends. No.
That's how all good things start.
Yeah. No, there was actually a few parents that had adopted Korean adoptees, and they followed me into the group. And then it's grown from there. We've had a couple ups and downs, but overall, it's been an extremely amazing way to meet other Korean adoptees. And then from there, I was added on to a couple more Korean adoptee groups.
So, Jinna, I'm wondering, you said like KJ said, and as you said, you started your own group about 10 months ago, and before that it had been, about a year or so that you had really came into this community, and you're new to this community as we are. I'm wondering, what was maybe either the moment, or what were you feeling at the time that made you want to take that first step back into the community, or first into the community around that time, when you were getting onto those groups?
My kids have grown up, and I actually had a few years where they were teenagers, and teenager years are quite difficult.
Really?
And I had
I'm not
Never heard that
teenagers at all.
no. Well, what's interesting is I've kind of been like a 40-year-old since I was 11 years old. I never went out of line.
Sure. Yeah.
And my parents are very religious. They're upstanding, very incredible people in my life. Even though I have the highs and lows with my parents, the way I behaved towards them was always of respect, and I never did anything out of line. But I can tell you that my children did not do that with me in their teenage years. But I had a mom who had already gone through the teenage years that really had a tough time of it. And her being there for me and giving me suggestions and being there supportive just really made an impact on me. And I always feel like if we can give back, then we should. And so I was like, well, I know a lot about helping out other people, and I wanted to give it a go. And with the encouragement of my husband, that's why I started the group.
Gotcha. Yeah. So going back further, so you said, you came over to America, you were speaking Korean, and then by age 11, you just kind of dropped that. I'm wondering, was there like a moment or, a period in your life where you were like, I don't want to think about being Korean, or has being Korean always been a strong identity for you? And I'll start there. Yeah. I was going to ask a follow-up question, but I was like, well, you should probably answer the first question first. So.
It's interesting is my husband has caught me filling out forms, and I marked that I was white. And he thought I was insane. He was just like, honey, you're not white, you're Asian. I'm like, no, I'm white.
Yeah.
And so now I fill out that I'm tan.
This other tan.
Yeah.
But I really identified as a white person until I started dating my husband. Then I realized, because I started dating my husband very young when I was 18. And in fact, being all white and thinking that I was white, it kind of brought a little stress in our dating world. And I can remember us going out to eat pho, which I did not like. And my husband's like, well, you got to learn to eat this. This is my culture.
If this is going to work, you're going to have to learn to like it.
And of course, years later, he now says, of course, I still would have dated you if you didn't like to eat pho.
No, you put me through all that for nothing.
Yes. But I did struggle with all aspects of my identity. I didn't want to be Korean for a while. I mean, if you look at pictures of me in the late 80s, when I was in my teens, I had the curly 5-inch bangs.
Yeah.
The Aquanet that you use, and blue makeup, blue eyeshadow, and with only being the only 1% at our church of being Asian, I just really wanted to be white and conform. And I think as a teenager or preteen, those were the really dark and struggling years for me. And I wanted nothing to do with being Korean.
Yeah, I completely relate with that story or your story there, and those feelings of wanting to be the majority, I guess, and conform. Like you said, I remember specifically thinking those exact thoughts. I'm trying to be a white person, and I was going to use the example of, when I was in my teen years, that's when I was like growing my hair out like all the other kids were doing. But then I was like, I think guys when they're teens in any culture just grow their hair long. So I don't know if that relates, but definitely just trying to make myself to absolutely and completely deny myself the ability to want to be Korean or want to be anything other. And we came over at different periods. You came when you were 5. I was a 6-month-old or 3-month-old kid or baby. So even I had even less connection of that or to that our mother culture than you did. And I completely understand, and I think it's really relatable when you relate that experience, because I completely just fall in line with that exact style of thinking. And it's really tough, like you said, when you're the 1% of the Asian population in like your church or your town. It's like you don't even have the opportunity to try and relate with someone else. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate you sharing that, because I do like you saying that. It's like that came right out of my book. So yeah, I didn't really have a question. Sorry, guys.
I just wanted to add too that my parents also, that's when Vietnam refugees came to this country, and my parents sponsored a few families from Vietnam. And so it was really difficult because people thought I was one of the refugees that my parents were sponsoring, and they didn't understand that I was their daughter. To this day, when I go to their church, they think that I'm one of the refugees that they sponsored. So I wanted to be so inclusive of the 3 white people that were my family. And it was, I can't stress enough how that was on me, how I felt. And I actually felt the jealousy that my brother was my parents' bio-related child, and I was somebody that they had adopted at 5 years old. I think a lot of Korean adoptees that are older can relate to that. Or I shouldn't speak for other Korean adoptees, but I personally really struggled with being part of the other 3. And even though I feel like my parents are my parents and my brother's my brother, and they did everything in their powers to make me part of their family, and I do feel like they're my parents, I always have my whole life have struggled with being adopted.
Yeah, I think that's the great lie of assimilation. And when I was younger, we would talk about, if we would talk about racism or Black people or Latinx people, then we would talk about like, oh, well, if they could just be more like us, then it would probably be okay, right? And I think that on some level, I internalized that because I was always trying to be like my family, because I was like, well, this is who I have, and so this is who I want to be. Filial piety apparently just runs through my genes. And so yeah, and then like here I am now at 27, and I'm realizing like the great lie of assimilation is like, if you can make yourself more white, quote unquote, then your life will be easier. But actually, that really takes away from your identity and celebrates like parts who are intrinsically who you are. And so then you just spend your life trying to, at least I feel like I spent a large part of my life trying to deny who I was so that I could just be more white and things could be a little bit easier. So yeah, I super understand where you're coming from with that. I'm curious too. So you left your Korean identity, behind. You were thinking about assimilation, trying to fit in, wishing you were white. And then you said when you started dating your now husband that started to change some things in your mind about how you thought about yourself. But what was the moment that you were like, oh, I really want to find other Korean adoptees like me?
Well, I had that a little bit when I went to college. So I only lived with my parents till I was 18, and I went to the U of M, and I actually lived with a family that they the husband had graduated from Harvard College, and the wife had graduated from Wellesley. And so they're very educated, but they're very open to um, explaining the world to me. And they had realized I was a little bit sheltered. And they encouraged me to join different groups at the school and just broaden my experience. And when I did try to join the Korean groups at the U of I had both the good and the bad experience. And the good was a couple people that I met that were actually here from Korea were kind, and then some that were not very kind at all. And actually, the unkind experience kind of turned me off, and I stopped with kind of try to blend in with the Koreans. And then when I was dating my husband, looking back now, I kind of really stayed as a white person because that's who I think of myself to this day. And I know that's, I'm actually accepting, of course, more and more that I'm Korean adopted, and I'm proud of it. But if you think about it, I grew up in a very all white family, and I can't remember any exposure to a Korean family. So yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to be a Korean adopted, but yet I'm proud of it.
So would you say that being part of those groups at the U of M and hanging with that host family, that was gave you a lot of momentum and kind of shifting your thinking about being a CAD?
I think it's mostly from my husband, who really pushed me to accept my identity and to be he's extremely supportive. And I wanted to throw in that I did meet my birth parents in 1993, my birth or bio parents. And it was an extremely painful and really an awful experience. And I think after that, I really didn't want anything to do with Koreans for a while. So when I met my birth bio parents, I really dreamt that I would get some questions answered and that they wanted a relationship with me, and that I'd get a lot of questions answered of why I was left on the streets of Korea. And it turned out where they actually wanted citizenship to America, and they wanted a large sum of money, which was just really devastating because I didn't understand why they wanted that, because they're strangers to me. And I didn't have it. I didn't have the money they wanted, and I didn't have the ability for them to come to this country. I was young 20s, and I was actually kind of in shock. And after that, I didn't want anything to do with Korean adoptees for a while, from that experience of meeting my birth parents.
Yeah, I completely understand why you wouldn't want to, pursue that. That's a really terrible situation, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I think as we talked about, a little bit at the top of the show, the community as a whole or we can see a lot of this positive image, of adoption or of reunions specifically. But there are not so great ones out there, and there's people that either it doesn't work out for them, or it's just not the right time at that time, or never the right time, and they get maybe forced into it by outside factors, and that can cause the experience to not be great. And I think that I really appreciate you sharing that with us and our audience, because that's not something that we've shared a whole lot of at the moment, up to this point. And I do think that, and I for one really appreciate you sharing that. And then Off of that, I think it's really amazing and shows a lot of it does show resiliency on you specifically for having gone through that experience and now still at even some point in the future coming back to the community and opening your arms up and your heart up and your mind up to the community a little bit more. So I really want to commend you for taking that step even at any point past that experience, because I for one feel like I would really struggle with wanting to come back to it. What was, if you can, if you know specifically, if there's anything in your mind, what, I'm assuming it was with support of your husband, what was that first step back to the community now? I mean, I think we may have talked about a little bit, with forming the group, but I'm just like now having a little bit more of that backstory. What was some of the thinking or the moments around that time to come back?
Well, to be honest, Facebook sometimes can get very ugly fast, and I really didn't have the skills in the beginning to cope with some of the really cruel comments that people would post in private groups. And being in that private group that had grown from a few hundred to a couple thousand, some anti-adoptees got on there and personally attacked me for being pro-adoption. But I also understand where they're coming from. They had a terrible adoption experience, and anyone that's pro-adoption, they're going to attack. And I just didn't have the skills for that group. And it was such a large group, and it was to a point where I didn't even want to be helping in that group. So like I said, with the help of my husband and his encouragement, he's just like, why don't you just do your own group? That way you can set your own rules and focus on what you want to contribute. And I want to contribute where it's a place where people feel comfortable to share if they're a parent, if they have questions, a resource place for parents to reach out to Korean adoptees where they can get to know other Korean adoptees. And there's been friendships that have been developed. And so it's been great having my own group and the help with some admins on there. It's been awesome. I've been able to meet some really amazing Korean adoptees. But it's also a place for people to talk about their struggles, but with getting the support of other people, whatever support that they need.
Yeah, it's great. One thing that I was going to mention that I can relate to, it's great to have a supportive spouse like you do. I have also been in that realm of having a kind of less knowledge of most Asian cultures, I would say, growing up and then in college and then moving out here. In California, there's a lot more Asian, so I started getting immersed into that culture. And when I met my wife, she was so surprised, I think, that I was in still this discovery phase of more about my history and about even any Asian culture. She's half Chinese, half Japanese. And so, but the things that, I would say, she's like, wow, that sounds, so white, or the things I would do. and it was just funny because, you're seeing me physically Asian, but yet the things I did were like, traits, a white person would do, or even the things I'd say. So it's been great because she did the same thing. I would say that I never really liked pho until meeting my wife, and we would go frequently because she loved it. And the more we would go out to pho, the more I actually started liking it. But, she introduced me to a lot of things, Japanese culture. And I think a lot of the culture that I learned from her inspired me a little bit to also start doing more into the Korean adoption, or just Korean culture in general. So, that's great that you have your husband to do that. So I can totally relate to that.
I also want to say that my parents did a really good job of trying to get me to go to Korean lessons, and they really encouraged to always learn and to be accepting. And I commend them for trying to get me to go to Korean lessons once a month or whatever it was back then. But when you're 11, 12, 13, you just so want to fit in and no one else is taking Korean lessons. And so I do really commend my parents for doing that.
I know you're one of the photos that you want to use for your profile that we're going to be putting up for our banner is one with you and your brother. Is this photo very important to you? Why is this the photo that you chose?
When I first got here from Korea in 1974, my parents, we took a trip to Washington, D.C. And I kind of remember the trip a little bit here and there. I couldn't speak the language, of course. I couldn't speak English, but I kind of remember going there a little bit. And I really, really love my brother. And he is just an amazing, amazing man. And has really encouraged me to be me. And I just really like that photo.
Great. Yeah, it's a nice photo.
I think the through line of this conversation with you, Jenna, and I really love it, is support. I think if we'd hashtag this, it would be support. And we know supportive spouse, supportive adoptive parents, supportive brother, a lot of support. And I say that because when we talk about adoption love or adoption life, and then we talk about, and then I'm on there and I'm on Facebook and I see how active you are in these other groups, in your own group, and how supportive you are of everyone else. I feel like anybody that posts anything or anybody that puts up something that promoting, you're on there, you're commenting, you've taken in this content, and you're showing them the support that you've received throughout your life in the pivotal moments that you need. And I think that's one of the great things about your group, because it does allow people to come into this space, a safe space, like you said, and experience these pivotal moments and have someone to support them, as opposed to maybe not having anything or having someone to bring them down a little bit. And that's one of the things I really, really, really love about it. What other ways do you want to, or how do you want to take that support and engage with the community in other ways? Have you thought about your future with adoption life and the other things that you want to do? I'm curious as to where this journey now will take you.
Well, I've become really good friends with another Korean adoptee, and I feel like we're sisters. And she has big visions for the community, for giving back also. So I'm going to be kind of helping her in her visions. But thank you for saying that. That I really do believe in trying to be as supportive of whatever journey somebody's on. I do want to go back, and I just wanted to also talk about when I went to the U of M. I'm terrible at spelling and grammar, but I corrected people's papers that were from Korea, some people to help them out. And one of them I became really close friends with. And she actually is the one that I helped correct her papers. I actually went to Korea and was a guest at their house for a month. And so I've gotten a lot of help in my life from different people. It's whether I'm giving first, and then they see that and they see the need and they give back. I think what goes around comes around. And whenever I do anything, I do it with intent of just being supportive. And if that helps them, then that's great.
I have loved what you said just about support and your story. And it reminds me of one of our previous guests who said, from her perspective, she felt like the Korean adoptee community just needed, I think she said, a revolving door of compassion. Right. And so I've loved just being able to listen to your story and hear that. And I love too that you brought up, even though it was a harsh personal experience, the anti-adoption adoptees out there. And when this episode drops, we'll be in the second week of November, which is National Adoption Awareness Month. And one of the things that for us on the show we've been thinking about is, how do we reclaim our own narrative, and how do we tell our own stories about adoption? Because if you look at the hashtags, it's about families who are adopting and all those things, but it's not really, you don't hear a lot from adoptee experiences in that, if you just follow a hashtag and see the content there. So I just love that, if somebody's listening to this and is just kind of thinking about adoption or knows adoptees, just to know that there are people who are pro-adoption and anti-adoption. That's not even something that I was aware of until I really started in this journey a couple months ago. And I was like, oh, this is a weird thing, And so I've had to do my own wrestling with adoption and things like that. And so, yeah. And I love too that you built your own group because you were like, you know what, this group is good, but also I need something different, and that you weren't afraid to build a safe space for yourself and to welcome others in. I think I had a question, but I lost it. So thanks for what you're doing, because we really appreciate it. And yep, no further questions.
Can I just plug the name of the group? It's
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Adoption Love.
Oh, it is Love. I don't know why. Dang it, I'm so
Well,
sorry.
Adoption Love, the very good, bad, and ugly of adoption.
Yeah.
And there's the Facebook group specifically. Is there any other location that people could find you also, or anything?
It's also a page, the same name with the page. And a shout out to Lauren for all her help on social media. She is amazing. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren. So
Yeah.
Adoption Love, the very good, bad, and ugly of adoption.
Mm-hmm.
So before we dive into our snacks, I wanted to ask you one final question to kind of tie all of this together. And that is, as being in a similar group as us, in a similar state of journey where for you specifically, you're coming back into the community and you're really getting more involved. What is, if you had to think of something off the top of your head, what would be one piece of advice that you would give people like us who are coming into this community for the first time or taking their first steps into this journey? What would you tell them about what they're about to get into? What would be something that you would recommend to them, or just would want to relay to someone like that?
You asked the question again. I had to answer, and then
That's okay. I always ask big questions at inopportune times. So
I forget half of what Patrick says anyway, also, so don't worry about it.
Thanks, Nathan.
I don't know, just take baby steps into it and watch videos and get yourself involved with some Korean adoption groups. That would be my advice.
I think baby steps is really great and really difficult, because I feel like, especially watching Patrick go through this journey, but then like for me re-entering this journey, we went from taking baby steps to like taking the largest leaps possible, and then being like, this was a mistake, and then having to like track back and then like restart and do baby steps just to protect ourselves, because it's so I don't know, I feel like I am my heart and my emotions are just more raw, and that was not something that I was expecting going forward. And so when you're taking these huge leaps, then you find yourself in the deep end really quickly, and you're like, oh shoot, I wasn't prepared for that, I gotta back up.
Listen, there's some comments that were just really terrible in my group when I was around 400, 450. Real terrible personal attacks for me personally being pro-adoption. And my husband was like, you have your rules, do the best you can. You're there to be supportive. And I'm so glad that I just kept going. And what was great about that was other people had seen that I was being personally attacked for being pro-adoption, and had stepped in and said, we can all have space in this environment, and we can be anti-adoption, but we don't have to be personally attacking somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is, you're gonna if you're diving into social media and getting to know the CAD community, you will get some people that are not as nice. And I just hope they run into somebody that's more supportive, and so that they're not turned off and leave. Because I have had people message me, and it's actually quite sad. I've had parents message me. They have Korean adoptees, children or babies, and they kind of saw the rude comments and the rude environment, and they said they're not going to be in the groups anymore. So my point is, I hope anyone that gets into the Korean community, Korean adoption community, that they run into supportive and kind people like you guys.
Thanks. Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
like you said, there's it just how you named your group. There's the good, the very good, the bad, and the ugly. And there is a lot of that on social media and just everywhere. So everyone should take their own level of comfort that there's going to be hopefully a silver lining to a lot of these pages, that you'll find the supportive people among the not so nice ones, and to not be dissuaded away from that. So it's social media is social media. That's pretty much all
It's
you
a
can say.
real cesspit of gold nuggets.
Yeah,
That's perfectly
a good
sad.
way.
yeah.
That is.
But thank you,
That is perfect.
Gina. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's have some food now.
All right, we will get on a quick break, and we'll be right back with some fun stuff.
We're gonna jump into mystery box number 4.
I will preface by saying we kind of already know
Yeah,
what
it's not
it is.
really a mystery.
It's not so
not a
much of a
mystery.
mystery,
But
but
it
why?
also knows
Why
what it
isn't
is.
it a mystery?
well,
We got a show
because
first.
today,
We got a show, then tell.
well, today that we're releasing this will be November 11th, 1111. And what does 1111 look like?
Pepero.
A bunch
Like
of
a
sticks.
couple of sticks.
Oh,
of
good.
sticks.
And
Favorite way
Jinna's
to be
got a
described.
different flavor, so
Ooh, what flavor do you have?
nice.
that looks good.
Cocoa filled?
Cocoa filled?
Cocoa filled.
sounds great.
Wow.
Filled
Thanks.
with chocolate.
Jerry gave us the OG. I think it's the original, just chocolate.
Is this the OG? It just has lime.
It's just
friends.
chocolate. It's the plain.
Elote, by the
You know,
way.
I
we didn't mention that.
almost got that one, but I went towards this one. I love chocolate.
Yeah, I would have gone for that one too. That one looks tasty. But yeah, I'm glad. I know there's a lot of different flavors of these. For those who
Lots.
might not really see these or whatever, I mean, if you've seen the Japanese version, which is Pocky. But yeah, they're just little chocolate covered biscuit sticks.
So I have as we're opening these and we were starting to dig in, I have the Wikipedia page for Pepero Day pulled up.
Mm.
I just
So
wanna read a
educators,
little bit
close
about
your
what
ears.
it's about.
We're reading from Wikipedia. Get over it.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So this is what it says. First, this is a little bit of history. Pepero Day is held annually on November 11th and is in observance in South Korea, similar to Valentine's Day. It involves the gifting or exchange of Pepero snacks, a line of chocolate dipped cookie sticks, with the intention of displaying affection for friends and loved ones. So technically, Jerry has gifted us these.
Ooh,
to
Jerry,
display
so
affection
flirty.
Jerry's
for
my
us.
Valentine.
Wow.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, our producer, Jerry, for showing us such affection.
Oh.
Yes.
From the Janchi Show to Jerry.
Mm.
Not to get so specific, but
Well,
we love you.
not to already comment, but I like the packaging of once you open it a lot
Ooh, I
better
haven't even
than
got my box open yet.
It
Then
feels like
Pocky.
Valentine's Day. Does your thing come in like a nice package there, Jenna?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
this is
nice.
I like the matte foil or whatever
Uh-huh.
that is. That's
I like that
much
too.
better
That's
than the Pocky, which is just a white bag.
I also like that. So this is wild. The box of this, the product description comes in English, Russian, Arabic,
Mm.
Taiwanese, and Vietnamese.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh.
So that's a whole lot of things.
Interesting.
So I'm
That is a lot
assuming
of
that means
info.
that they're very popular.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Have you had these, Jinna?
No, this is the first time.
Okay.
Perfect.
Wow.
This is our
This
first.
is
This
first
is my
time as
first
well.
time.
Jerry doesn't love us that much.
Why? They're
These
old.
are expired.
expired
Jerry
in
won.
August.
Yeah, August 12th.
If I get sick,
Jerry.
Jerry.
Actually, I'm not going to throw that down. I feel like that's a good way to not get.
Whatever.
Yeah, Jerry.
Sponsored by Lotte,
We're gonna have a
the makers
talk.
of Pepero sticks.
If one of
Ooh,
us
this
gets
is-
sick.
Very chocolatey though.
This looks like one of those really thin French cigarettes. I feel like I need one of those things to put.
Oh,
in.
like a 1920s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
See.
Oh,
got
you
my
got
Pepero stick
your
here, see?
chocolate. Oh.
What has happened to our food portion where we're now devolving into accents at least once?
Yeah, I
an
don't know.
episode?
And it
Well,
makes
what's
it
the-
so
it
much
remind me of,
better. Come on.
April Ludgate playing her character.
Oh yeah, Janet Snakehole.
Oh yeah, Janice Snakehole. Yeah. Nice. So
how
Jenna,
are yours?
yeah, what's your cracker look like? I'm curious to see because it's filled, right?
Mine isn't as fancy as what I thought it was going to be. It's a little plain. I don't know if you're able
Okay,
to
yeah.
see.
It's not coated.
Yeah, if
Oh,
you
I see
bite
that.
into it,
Looks more like
does
a
it-
pretzel stick.
It's very chocolatey when you bite into it. It's actually quite delicious.
Yes, it looks like those like cocoa wafery things that have the chocolate shot that like you put in like a thing of hot chocolate. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
You know what I'm talking about? I don't even know what they're called.
No.
kind
Oh
of.
my
They're very
gosh.
delicious.
Anyways, they look like the perfect complement to a hot cocoa. Would you agree with that,
Okay.
Jinna?
Yes, or a cafe mocha.
Mm-hmm.
That would be good.
So go
I
with the
actually
filled
want some
ones.
coffee now.
yeah. If you want more
The
chocolate.
filled ones, I think I'd actually maybe it's just a reverse of the regular stick. It's just taking the coating and widening the stick part and putting the coating inside of it. And I think I might like that better.
Is the stick like wafery?
No, it's like a
It's like a biscuit, or pretzel.
yeah,
like a
more like
pretzel.
a soft pretzel.
Yeah.
Mm.
I would. That's what I
Okay.
would compare mine to as well.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
love
good.
chocolate though.
You can't go wrong with.
Chocolate on a stick. You can't beat chocolate on a stick.
However, I really want to compare this to a Pocky, like eat them next to each other. But I feel like this is, because I've had Pocky more so, I feel it's just as good. I feel like it's almost exactly the same. So I know somebody's gonna like write us going, no, they're not the same. Pepero's so much better.
Come on the show and fight us.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I will say I got to read this because it's on the Wikipedia page, so it's most likely true. There is a controversy section on the Wikipedia
Ooh.
page.
Uh-oh.
Pepero is strikingly similar to the Japanese snack Pocky, which is manufactured by the Japanese confectionery company Glico since 1966. Pepero has been out since 1983.
Uh-oh.
So, Nathan, you might. I think that you're hitting it on the head there. That we might get some people calling in about that. So I wanted to say we're aware of the controversy, our listeners and viewers, and please don't yell at us.
And which one came first?
We
Okay.
could try Pocky at some point.
This has the most satisfying snap. I'm just gonna
It is.
Yeah.
like that's perfect. I love that crispy. Just prop. It's real
And
good.
props to Lotte, you're eating an expired one and it's still snappy.
That's
That's
a great
true.
point.
That's a really
great
good point.
So right there alone,
That actually is upping the rating
Yeah,
for me
that's-
already
that's,
as I formulate the rating.
good
in my
job for surpassing your freshness.
Let's jump into the rating. Out of 11 for Pepero Day,
Ooh, good.
how many Pepero sticks do you give this Pepero stick? Out of 11.
Who are you asking?
Let's jump in with Patrick.
Oh, I wasn't even ready.
Oh
I'm
no.
still eating.
He's still eating.
All right, so my inclination is to give it a 5 or 11, not a 5, an 11 because these are really good. I'm also if we ever talk to my adoptive mom at any point, she will tell you that I hated chocolate as a child.
Really?
Apparently.
What?
I love chocolate now. I eat too much chocolate. It's way too much. It's not good. I'm doing an intermittent fasting diet right now that I'm breaking to be on the show because I love
thank
chocolate
you.
so much.
Thank you for continuing to produce content for your own show.
But this is amazing. One, I like everything that we talked about really sets it off for me. The packaging, great. I mean, I just love the chocolate. And then the snap is so satisfying. And then what Nathan said, the fact that these are expired and still snapping, shouts to you, Lotte. So Patrick gives this an 11.
11 out of 11.
Nice. Wow.
All right, Jinna, what about you?
I also give it 11 out of 11.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They're delicious.
Are you going to buy more now for your kids too? When they actually,
Yes,
you said they're in
definitely.
college. They'll come home and
Yes.
grab them.
Whoa,
and eat them.
college kids love snacks too,
Sure.
okay?
Yes.
So,
Especially at home.
One graduated already from college, but he would he'll probably eat the rest of my package when he comes for lunch today.
My kids eat the Pockies that we have here at the house, so they eat these all the time. If I bring these down, I'm guaranteed that this bag will be gone as well. So I'm gonna have to eat as many as I can right now before I get down there. But yeah, I'm gonna say 11 out of 11 too. There's no, I mean, it's tasty. You can't go wrong with these. I want to try the other flavors. That's just, there's always some good variety. I always like a little bit more of the other ones, like the strawberry or the mint or the coffee one. And that's the ones that Pocky makes. So I can only assume that Pepero makes some similar flavors.
I'm gonna round it out. A perfect 11 out of 11. I like Patrick. I love this particular part of the packaging. Like the box, I was like, "Oh, that's really cute." And then I opened it up and I saw this very, I'm gonna say, seductive red.
Yeah,
bag.
It is. It's a nice
Like,
bag.
It
Like,
is It is romantic.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, like honestly, if I saw a Valentine's candy that was packaged this well, I would just be like, my work here is done. So,
Yep. I don't even need a card. No flowers.
Whoever made, this is amazing. I love that there are so many languages on these Pepero sticks box. Also, just because I like this, I like that one serving size is a whole package, so you just know, because like you're gonna eat the whole thing, so you can, you just know what you're getting into there. The snap is perfect and always pleasing to me. And I feel like I've eaten so many of them and I'm only like halfway through. So you know what? 12 out of 11. That's how I feel. About this.
Wow.
And I don't even love sweets that much. And this is just like,
dang.
You can't
so
give it
good.
12. It's 11-11. You can't give it until tomorrow.
Is that our first across the board
11
score?
It is.
perfect score?
Yeah. Good job.
I feel like we need a sound
Jenna
effect
is
for that.
now,
Gonna
she
put you on
will
that,
be
KJ.
known on an episode as the perfect 11s. There you go.
Oh, there you go. That's the
Perfect
episode
score.
title. The Perfect 11s.
Mhm.
But thank you.
Before we go, I just want to. Nathan's mentioned it a couple times that there are many flavors of this, and I got a little list here. I just want to read off some that I find interesting. There's a melon flavor of this. Jenna, the kind that you have is called. I think it's called nude. It's called
Nude?
chocolate in the center with a biscuit coating on the outside.
Oh.
Chocolate in the center with a biscuit coating on the outside. We have mint choco. There's a cherry double dip, a blueberry yogurt, and then my favorite, which I have to try, the nude cheddar cheese.
Ooh, interesting.
I think that one really stuck out to me. They got a latte, tiramisu cheese. Like Nathan said, they got a ton of flavors. So listeners, get out to the store, get all of these flavors, and let us know what they taste like.
Yeah. Tell us what your favorite is. And then watch episode 13 of our podcast with Jinna Lee here. So thank you again. Where is everyone able to find you online?
I am with the Adoption Love, the Very Good, Bad, and Ugly of Adoption. It's a group and a page.
Great. On Facebook. Yeah. And of course, you can find us at the Janchi Show on all major platforms, and email Janchi Show at justlikemedia.com.
Still waiting on my emails to come in for my
Send us an email. Our
numerous
inbox,
requests.
Our
for
inbox
emails.
is lonely.
Patrick is very lonely. And so he just needs to get some emails.
Just
for the
keep
Janchi Show.
refreshing the inbox, and there's nothing coming in, so I'm very upset.
He's lying. We have so many emails coming in. Just
It's not true.
That's not also.
Or
come
is
on,
it
guys. It's got to work it up.
Well, this is a great way to end this segment
Yep,
by just multiple lies.
You can find me on the internet on all the places that I want to be found at KJ Relke.
You can find me at Patrick in the World on Instagram and on Facebook at my regular name.
And I am Nowak Photo on Instagram and Nathan Nowak everywhere else.
Wait, did you just say Nowak?
Sorry, Nowak.
I was like, I thought
was
you
just thinking
you
about
said
that
that your
today.
last name was Nowak, and then you're like, and I'm Nathan Nowak everywhere else.
That's a whole nother story for a whole nother episode.
Perfect.
That's
We can get
hilarious.
into that one.
We will get into it next time. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.